Okay, this is John with Heritage Soundcraft Institute, and I'm actually sitting with Tony Velez, who's also on the board. He is on the board for multiple reasons. He fits the bill because he has played extensively in the Latin music circuit, and he still does. And also, he's a very qualified luthier. He makes many instruments, some of which are featured here. We have here a Puerto Rican style / Cuban / electric tres, 9-string tres. This is a bass with a tres shaped body, Puerto Rican tres shaped body. This is an electric guitar that he also builds, and a Cuban pear shaped tres with a cutaway. And these are just some of the instruments that Tony makes. So Tony, thank you so much for doing this. I've been wanting to do this for actually a very long time, to interview you, and we're friends, so I know almost everything about Tony, kind of. But I wanted the world to know more about you, so here we are. And so Tony, tell me how you started with, first of all, how did you start playing guitar, and how did that begin for you?
Oh, well, first, thank you, John, for having me here. And I'm also honored to be sitting with you. But I started watching my father play guitar when I was a child, and we grew up in the South Bronx, and I took it to the rock and roll scene, basically, because my father was playing Spanish music, and even though that's part of my culture, you know, I was more into the rock and roll thing. So that's how I started playing electric guitar. And to stay out of trouble, I would get together with my brother, who played bass, and my childhood friend Randy, who was a phenomenal drummer. And we had a power trio.
Power trio is like what I think Cream was like.
Yes.
And Hendrix fell under that, right?
That's right. The power trios of the day, including Grand Funk Railroad. So we had the talent, we had the look, we had the originality of our own music. We write our own music. And eventually we got an audition for Atlantic Records.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. And that's
big break from a kid from the Bronx.
Oh, yes. We said, finally, all this hard work is going to pay off.
Yeah.
They wanted to sign us. We did a private audition at the College of Performing Arts in New York City. So we had 4 days to get an attorney and meet with them and solidify and signing with the record company. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. The drummer decided to go play jazz up in the Catskills with his music teacher. That's when I went into Latin music, encouraged by my uncle Velez Vilato, world-renowned timbalero, who worked with Carlos Santana for many, many years, and also played with all these well-known Latin bands from those days. And he introduced me to the tres, the Cuban tres, which has 6 strings. And basically, in those days, they were hard to come by. Nobody was really building them, so you had to convert an acoustic guitar. Problem with that was scale length and a lot of technical things that would have to be fixed and converted. And then I had much success with that. I started touring with bands that had hit records at the time, and so I was like the new kid on the block, but they needed me because I played the tres.
So for those who don't know, the tres is, I think it's considered the national instrument of Cuba?
Yes,
probably would be, right?
Yes.
Puerto Rico has the cuatro, and in Cuba it's the tres. And in Latin music, if you listen to Latin music, a lot of the ostinatos and the parts that repeat, that hold kind of the structure with the chords and they're using arpeggios, is done originally with the instrument known as the tres. Now you'll hear a lot of times piano take the part, you know. Maybe you want to give them a quick example of what you would hear in that genre of music on the tres?
Oh, sure.
The role of the tres within the band, the conjunto.
So the tres in Cuban music and New York salsa music holds down a foundation, and I'll play kind of a montuno for you. They call it montuno or guajeo. So. and a minor
What
scale.
would be like a basic one that when people think of the genre of music, a very simple, common, basic one, like, you know, very...
Okay.
For Tony, that's simple. That's how good he is.
Oh.
I actually became acquainted with the instrument more when I met Tony. I knew about the tres from recordings. I never played one or really encountered one. And then so I went home and I learned a very basic mantuano. And I showed Tony. He said, "Oh yeah," and Tony can play it 9 different ways, literally, or more actually. But when I understand the tres, a lot of times some players, some even notable players, they'll actually have a guitar that they can convert. So was your first tres, was it just a guitar that was converted? So these are like 3 double strings.
Right.
Whereas a regular guitar has also 6 strings, but these are paired 2, 2, and 2, and it has its own unique tuning. So yours was a converted?
That's correct. So my uncle, Orestes, showed me a real tres from Cuba that he brought when he came from Cuba to New York. And he says, well, this is how it's tuned, this is how it's played, but you're going to have to find a small-bodied acoustic guitar with a short scale if possible. If not, then you have to use a capo, because the way it's tuned is a high G. On an average, on longer scales, the string would just pop. So you have to use a scale, then tune it to G, C, and E.
But a capo, you can capo it up, and
Right.
then you can use it like what. But see, Tony makes this because he's already a player and he's a luthier, and it's just a tres. It's what it needs to be without having to capo or anything. It does the job. It looks like a regular guitar, but it's not. It's actually geared exactly for the genre that Tony specializes in.
Right, so if you look at the strings, see how they're in courses? 2, 2, and 2. The top and the bottom being in octaves.
Right.
And the middle in unison. So this is true to scale. And which would bring me to why I started to build these instruments. So let's say you asked me that question, Tony, why did you start building these instruments? And really out of frustration of not being able to find a real tres with the proper scale. Okay, so when I finally got one from Cuba, the wood was cracking, and you know, because they have a humid climate, and Puerto Rico also. So I said, I'm gonna build, I blueprinted it out, basically found out the correct scale and the bracings and things, you know, I'm talking Luthier talk now, and I started to build with better woods that were nice and dry. In this case, this wood is walnut, but you can build the sides and back out of anything, as long as you brace the spruce top correctly, which is normally fan bracing. And I got a good result even on my first one. And I says, okay, I'm onto something here. And then I continued to build from there and got better at it. And I was really building them for my own satisfaction. But word got out that there's a guy in New York building the Cuban tres and the Puerto Rican tres. And then I got bombarded with orders, which wasn't my intention. So I got busy and I made a lot of them in different shapes, different styles.
Over the years,
Over the years,
how many do
yes.
you think you made over the years, roughly, give or take? Now sometimes I even lose count of my own
Yes,
output. But
I gotta say 100 plus.
okay, that's
You
a good
know,
number, yeah.
Yeah, without exaggerating too much. I didn't make thousands because
Well,
I'm
that's
just
single, yeah.
a one-person shop. Yeah.
Now, we're going to get back into that stuff more later, but I want to get into questions pertaining to your background. I'm also from the Bronx, and people who are from the Bronx or from the South Bronx, they wear that like a badge on their sleeve forever. What was it like growing up for you in the Bronx? What was that experience like? How would you sum that up?
Would probably pretty intense. There was always something going on, and most of the time, negative things.
Okay.
In those years, dope and, you know, drugs were a big thing, you know, and that wasn't my thing. So, in order to stay away from those things, I got busy learning how to play the guitar and practicing.
So would you say music saved you in a sense?
Music saved me.
Because you're in an environment, and you're in an environment where I speak from experience. It's like,
Right.
if you're not doing what everyone else is doing, you're a weird one.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
So maybe they saw you as the weirdo who plays the guitar, locks himself in the room?
Sure. As a matter of fact, it's not that I was trying to be a rebel or anything, but even the dress codes for the South Bronx were different than how I dressed. I was more like, my hair was out to here.
Oh, you had
I called it a natural.
70s fro?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would wear colorful shirts with big collars and bell bottoms. I was, you know, probably, they looked at me and they said, oh, he's a weirdo or he's a hippie.
Right.
But that's
And you started out playing electric guitar,
electric.
right?
Right.
And actually, here's one of your really beautiful, gorgeous
Yes.
electric guitars. It looks kind of like a Polary Smith kind of a thing, with a very unique touch. You do a really beautiful job dyeing the top with this blue, and it has the curls from the maple on the cap. And this looks like a rose. Was this rosewood fingerboard?
Let me see.
The rosewood or ebony. I can't tell with the lighting.
That's actually ebony.
Oh, ebony. Okay,
Yeah.
ebony. And then here's the back, mahogany. And what a lovely job you do on these instruments. And this comes from passion, being a player yourself. And this was your original instrument, right? This would be your first that you started playing.
Yes. After I built this one, I built it for myself. That's why it's here, because I didn't sell it. And I took it out on some gigs and had a lot of fun with it. And people were like, wow, nice.
What was the first guitar you actually played when you were a kid? The first guitar that you got?
Oh, okay. First guitar that I played in the electric sense was a guitar given to me in pieces by other musicians, older musicians, you know.
Like electric guitar parts that you Frankensteined?
Exactly. So I had a Tony Velez Frankenstein special, and that served two purposes. It gave me a guitar that I can afford, but it also gave me knowledge on how to put it together in pieces and to make it work. So that stood in my mind throughout the years, and that's Luthier. It's knocking on my door, say, hey, you know, you can, you know, tinker with this. And
yeah. It's remarkable for me too, because my first guitar was really bad, and I had to, you know, I just learned how to play on it. And then I got an electric guitar, which it needed a lot of work, and I definitely, at my 13 years old, had no money. We had no money to spend on things like that. So I remember having to figure it out on my own, and it had a Floyd Rose bridge, and if you don't get it right, it leans up really high, and the first time I changed the strings, I had that problem, and I said, okay, well, I have some tools. I have it looks like I have the right tools to do this, and I was just a tinkerer. And for me, luthiery or the love of making and repairing instruments started at that age. So it sounds like you're similar with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe if you had the money to pay someone to work on it for you, maybe you wouldn't be the person you are today.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And my mother, may she rest in peace, is still angry with me because I use a lot of her kitchen knives to make holes and route things and hammers and shoes.
Oh, so you wanted to put a new pickup in and it didn't fit, so you had to use like a knife to whatever you had. Yeah.
What was available. And you know, that really got me started, you know, figuring out how these guitars actually work. But not just putting a bunch of tuning machines and pickups. They have to be put right. They have to be wired correctly. And scale length on a guitar, any guitar, is key. Otherwise it won't play correctly.
But even though you ended up falling into the Latin music circuit shortly after, You still play the guitar, the electric guitar and rock and roll. That's still part of who you are musically.
Yes, absolutely.
You have a band. I believe you still you have a Latin band.
Right.
Cubarico, people know, it's big up here, has a name in New York. But you also you have a band playing rock and roll.
Right, so we made another trio up here in the Hudson Valley, Orange County, New York, and we got a lot of work out of it, and you know, I was still rocking, so I can play both genres with no problem. When I moved up from New York City, I didn't know any musicians, so I started visiting the music stores. Who's around? What's up? So the first band that I joined up with, the band leader worked in a music store, and he says, "I'm looking for a guitar player. Hey, do you play country music?" And I know how to play slide guitar. I said, "Sure I do." And so he gave me a cassette tape, and I had to learn 35 songs.
Wow.
Within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I remember you have a country, you did some gigs with a country music.
Oh yeah, we worked a lot. So I got my feet wet with that. And then the second band was a reggae band. So
Oh, you did that as well.
I did that as well. And then, little by little, I started finding Latin musicians, and some who I worked with in New York City, who were working the circuit, Manhattan, traveling and doing all that. And we started to form a Latin band up here in the Hudson Valley because there weren't any Latin bands, dance bands. And haven't stopped ever since, and we got a lot of work as a result. And here we are. Yeah.
The funny thing is, so apart from all of this music stuff, you ended up deciding after having some children you wanted, because you were a gigging musician, you were playing in New York, you were playing sometimes two or three gigs a night. That's big. That's
yes.
a big deal. You were recording with Fania All Star, Fania label. So you were involved in the 70s with I mean, Fania was the pinnacle of Latin music at the time. That was a huge label, and you recorded extensively with them as one of the top three or four available tres players in New York, in the country even. So what was that like? Recording and gigging in those days must have been hectic.
Very hectic, yes. So I was playing 2 to 3 gigs a night. During the daytime, I'd be in the recording studios, recording for other folks' albums, well-known Latin singer albums. Such as Justo Betancourt, Monguito L'Unico, even with my uncle, Orestes Vilator, he had Los Quimbos, and I was, Conjunto Candela was the first band, Latin professional band that I worked with. And I had just learned the tres, so I learned only 2 songs. And I went for an audition. It was a live audition at Casino 14 Manhattan. And I was very shy, and I walked in there, and I said, I'm not real comfortable in the tres, but I did learn the 2 songs the best I could. And I walk into the hall, and there's hundreds of people having a great time and dancing. And
that was, wow.
Yeah.
Overwhelming?
Overwhelming. And my father was with me at the time, and he was more excited than I was. I was more nervous.
So he was excited that his son was now going to be a part of this whole thing?
Yes.
He's proud. And just to note, your father was a pretty notable guitar player and a lyricist.
Yes.
What was his first name?
Pedro.
Pedro Velez.
Pedro Velez.
I believe your family is from Ponce. He's from Ponce, Puerto Rico, his roots. Or was he born there?
Right. He was born and raised in Ponce. And my mother was in Mayagüez. And how they met in between, I don't know, but...
But your household was an interesting. Your household was an interesting one because recently you became reacquainted with an old friend, Nelson Gonzalez, who's one of the leading tres players in the world, well known, plays with all the top bands, like what you were doing. Just he's been doing it since forever and still does.
Right.
So he would frequent your house to hang out with your father, maybe get some lyrics, and
Sure.
play some music, and then some other people came to your house regularly, right?
Oh yes, definitely. So
That's an interesting background.
it is because I was
In the Bronx.
constantly surrounded by these super Latin stars.
Yeah.
La Lupe, Cachao,
Cachao.
Andy Gonzalez,
Wow.
Ray Barreto,
Wow.
Alberto Santiago.
You'll come and eat and play music.
Yes.
Coffee.
They would get into these jam sessions in the house, and even though I was a rocker, it would still kind of draw me in. I gotta watch these guys. I gotta listen to what they're doing, you know. And I was overwhelmed with musicians, and my father was an excellent lyricist. And so he would write the songs and play non-string guitar and sing it, and these artists, well-known artists, would come and they enjoyed his company. He was always very welcoming, but they would also ask him for lyrics. You know, what
He just had a knack for that.
he had a knack for like
Yeah.
you can, people got a knack for poetry. They can
Yeah.
just sit there and all of a sudden look at you and say, and they write a poem.
So these big wigs came to your house
Yes.
to look for lyrics and hang out and jam.
And jam and eat and just socialize.
You grew up in that.
I grew up in that.
That was your beginning for the Latin music thing. Part of the Soundcraft Heritage Soundcraft Institute is really it's about preservation really and education, not just entertainment, of course. It dawned upon me recently, like, wait a minute, I'm not just making, repairing cuatros and ouds and stuff. I'm actually preserving culture. Like, if all the Luthiers went away, what happens to that culture? So, when I thought of to have you on the board, you fit the bill perfectly, because not only do you play, you've played with some of the big names, that's important culturally, but you also make and repair and restore these instruments. But you're keeping them alive. And actually, I've learned tremendous amount of luthier from you, particularly with the tres and even the cuatro. When I was building my first cuatro, I consulted you. So this is invaluable. I think that luthiers are invaluable. I have a very famous oud player. His name is Adadingjan. In the Armenian, Turkish, Arabic, Greek oud world, he's one of the top. And he has an album called Conversations with Mono. Mono was one of the great Greek oud makers in the old days. And his album is just him oodling, if you will, on his mono oud, and it's called Conversations with Mono, and it's dedicated to all luthiers. And when he gave me this CD, John, listen to this, and every time he comes, he thanks me just for being a luthier. I'm like, wow, I guess I'm special.
It's awesome.
And he says to me, John, without you, us musicians are in trouble. And so I was like, wow, I think that I was trying to put together an organization. I don't know how to do it because I'm involved in Middle Eastern arts. I'm involved in Hispanic arts and others. So that's our role as a luthier, to preserve. I mean, if you're making, for example, a tres, first you need a good example of a tres. So you have to copy the shape, you have to copy the bracing, and you're keeping it alive. You're acting as the caregiver to the next generation, and you have to pass the knowledge on.
Yes.
So that's why we do things like workshops and things like that, and you're going to be involved with more of that in the future. And in fact, there's a very important project you're actually involved in right now, or you just finished up. Tony was given a very valuable tres, owned and played by originally, who was this? Nino Rivera.
Nino Rivera from Cuba, one of the most melodic tres players and well-known tres players in the world. Must be 50, 60 albums that he recorded on. He was also an arranger, but he was considered one of those special dress players because of his style of playing very melodic and beautiful. So, a friend of ours, Nelson Gonzalez, we hooked up after many, many years, and he just happened to go to John's shop, and John calls me and he says, "Hey, there's somebody here that wants to say hello." And I was like, wow, I haven't seen him in over 15 years, and the last time I saw him in my house was more than 30 years. So it was like, wow.
Blast from the past.
Yes. And then he says, "I have this dress that Nino Rivera gave me." I was like, "What?"
Actually, he told me in my shop that he has it. I think he was trying to get me to work on it. Mm-hmm. And I said, no. I said, there's someone who I think should probably take that on. And I also was like, you should go visit his house because Tony, you have like 10 dresses, like, be like some of the greatest dresses in the world that you make, and they're just sitting. You make them and they're sitting there. He's like 10 of them. Here's just some of them. I said, you gotta go see his dresses. So he brought over this very important Nino Rivera dress, which was gifted to him by Nino himself to Nelson Gonzalez, like I think late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
And you had to do extensive work to this instrument.
Extensive, yes.
We're gonna do a separate video on that, guys, because that's a whole thing. So we'll get in detail about that. But I just wanted to get into how Tony received this, and he just finished this actually. I think you just completed it recently.
Right.
So we're going to get in detail with that, with photos and the video, and we'll do the comparison. You know, you'll see Nino Rivera with the dress and what it is now. But Tony also does extensive restorations on these instruments as well.
Yeah. And I definitely can't wait for that video because it's
very important to get this out.
Dear to my heart.
Yeah.
You know, that I play the man's music. You know, he's no longer with us. He passed away, but to actually go to my recording studio over there and plug that particular dress in and play one of his songs that I recorded with my own dress was like amazing. It was magical. So I recorded his dress playing his song. And
what's the name of the tune?
It's called Oye mi tres montuno. I was picking the dress earlier.
You want to give us a quick demonstration of the tune?
Sure.
It's a very famous tune.
Yeah.
Very melodic, rhythmic, melodic, sweet.
Right.
Yeah, that would sum up Nino Rivera's style.
That's right. So, what an honor to actually record his dress from the 1940s, by the way. So, like John said, there'll be a follow-up to the whole Nino Rivera dress.
Yeah, I plan on doing a full video on just that. That's a topic in its own.
Yes.
Another thing I'd like to get into, Tony, is there's another side to you. Mm-hmm. Many people don't know this if they know you only through music. And that is, when you had your children,
right?
You know, you decided, I want a little more security. Playing this music stuff is fun, but it's tough. And you actually ended up in law enforcement.
I did. Yes, I did. 30 years of my life. I had my first daughter, and when I left the hospital, I looked up in the sky in a daze, and I says, I need security for my family.
I think that's the meaning of love, like the real meaning that kicked in.
It was so intense that it was almost like a spiritual experience. And I was walking around in a daze, and I immediately started looking what's out there job-wise that has good benefits and security. And I wound up taking exams, civil service exams. First 5 years, I took the state correction exam, passed it, They sent me to the academy, and then I went to work.
And I believe you started in the prison system.
Right, so that's the
initially,
correction.
correctionals.
So I worked at Sing Sing and Fishkill.
Sing Sing is kind of a, I would say, infamous prison on the Hudson River. If you're coming from New York City, along the Hudson, on the east bank of the Hudson, was it Ossining or Tarrytown?
Ossining, yeah.
Ossining. Actually, if you ever take the Metro North train upstate New York, the train goes right through the prison. It does. It's like a small area, goes right through it. And I think it's famous for, well, there's a term in New York. And what did that mean? It meant you were going to Sing Sing.
Right.
Because that would be up north to the Hudson River. And I didn't know what that meant as a kid, but I always heard that.
Yes.
That's where the term comes from. So I guess Sing Sing at the time, maybe more than Rikers Island, was a prison that they would send the New York convicts to.
Right. So.
And it's an older prison, right?
Sing Sing is
old.
It's very old. And if you look at some of the old black and white movies with George Raft and James Cagney, they filmed a lot of these prison-type movies at Sing Sing. I mean, today they call it Ossining, but it's Sing Sing. I even saw
Sing Sing on Hudson.
They even when they gave
it's close to the train station too, right?
Yes.
I think it's close.
Yes.
Probably hit the train going by all the time.
When they first sent me there, and me and some new officers, you know, they showed us the electric chair.
The famous or infamous, oh God.
Yeah, so that was kind of spooky.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did what I had to do.
And you ended up becoming police for State Park and Recreation.
That's right.
Which when I first met Tony, I said, I was very naive. I said, Tony, I said to you, why they need police in state parks? And I mean, those are beautiful places. Like, you know, I don't think crime happens. No. In fact, you had a whole career based on petty crimes, stupid crimes, and Tony tells me, oh, you kidding me? Perverts, suicides, homicides, every weird thing. Diplomats meeting, trading secrets in the state park, all kinds of. And I've known Tony now for a while. And the big thing with Tony is every time I see him, I hear another crazy story about how they arrest someone who was doing something so stupid. People friends shooting at each other in the state park, shooting guns at each other for fun. So every time I see Tony's another crazy story. I want you to tell the one story about the guy who stole a Rolls Royce.
Oh, Jesus. So, this goes back to when I was working in the correction department. You know, so you work there every day. You're going to speak with the inmates, you know, and some of them are more talkative and friendly because they're bored too and they want to talk, you know.
Yeah, nothing else to do.
So there was a Hispanic inmate and I asked him, what are you in for, you know, and he says, well, I steal cars. I said, okay.
That was a profession, by the way.
Yeah.
In New York in the 80s. If you were a car thief, you had some kind of weird status. All the chop shops knew you would steal a car, bring it to an alleyway, they'd take all the important parts off, and then discard the rest of the car.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that was like $1 billion business.
Oh, yeah. So this inmate, he says, yeah, he stole a car, and I says, well, ultimately, you know, led to you getting caught and your arrests. He says, well, he says, I'm stupid, number one. Number two, he says he went into Manhattan and he stole a Rolls Royce. Okay.
Rolls Royce.
A Rolls Royce. However, he wasn't exactly dressed like
an owner.
An owner.
Yeah.
He had shorts on, a dirty t-shirt.
Oh, God.
He was scruffy looking. And he decides he's going to drive this Rolls Royce into Queens. So when he goes to pay the toll at the bridge, one of the bridge officers, because they had uniforms, looked at him and she says, wait a minute, this isn't your car. And he insisted, you know, it's my car. He says, this is not your car. And then she called on the radio for backup to come out.
Yeah.
And
the picture don't match.
Right. So the supervisor came out with a few other officers, and they pulled him to the side and started conversing with him, and realized that he had stolen that Rolls Royce. You know, so he attracted plenty of attention. right at the toll booth. You know, and I'm like, so then I told him, yeah, that was pretty stupid.
Yeah. I had a client. This guy came into my shop. He was a psychotherapist, and I remember just asking him. I said, you know, what is this? Some people, they're just in and out of jail constantly. They can't stay out of trouble. Like, I've never been to jail, you know. But just some people like can't get out of jail. They're just in and out. I said to him, why is that? I'm thinking he's gonna give me some Freudian thing. My mother wasn't there, then hug him. He goes, John, some people are just stupid. That wasn't the answer I was expecting from a psychotherapist, you know, who like, these people like to, you know, make things more complicated and get into it. No, some people are just stupid, you know what? That's perfect answer.
Oh my goodness.
I think George Carlin has a quote. He goes, you never see a Rolls Royce with a bumper sticker that says, shit happens. Those people don't go with that car, you know?
Yeah.
So Tony, you did 30 years in this tough law enforcement business, and I did get to know more about law enforcement. Maybe, you know, before I met you, I was like, oh, screw the cops and all that, but now, you know, I've heard stories where you telling me you almost lost your life, and we could get into that, but you know, you were almost shot by someone you pulled over, and it's a very stressful job, I learned, you know, and you put in your time, and you put your time faithfully, and you're able to retire. What is life like now that you're retired? I'm sitting in here in one of the most glorious man caves any man would want. You have a recording studio here, you have records, you have instruments, you even have a luthier shop in your basement. You don't even have to leave. Like me, I have to go out of my house. You know, I used to work in my pajamas and stuff like that. You probably do that, right?
Oh, sure.
So after retirement, what is life like? You have your band, you have grandchildren and children, and...
Well, I've been blessed, and I thank the Lord every day for my family. I thank Him for giving me these skills to play music, but to
That's
also...
so lucky if you're born with that. I feel bad, you know, for people who are not born with these talents. I can't, as a musician, I can't imagine living without it, right?
Oh, yes. It's...
What would your life be without music?
I'll tell you...
I would have gotten a lot of trouble. Music saved me, personally.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you definitely understand why I brought that up.
Yeah.
The other thing is, during the police academy, a lot of speakers would come to talk to the class, and there was one detective who came in. I won't mention names, but he comes in and he didn't show up with a lesson plan. And he's pacing in front of the class. He's got a big gut, you know, you could tell he's been around.
And he's about to be out.
Yeah. So he says, these words of wisdom, which to this day are still glued to my brain, because he says, don't wait for you to retire to then look for a hobby or something else to do. Because we are human beings. We need to be busy. We need to do things. We need to be artistic.
They say, I'm not religious or anything, but they say that idle hands does the devil's work.
That's correct.
To not be busy with something positive, something healthy, you're
Yes.
probably going to get into some bad stuff.
Yes. You know, I mean, some people don't go, if they don't have these skills that we have, they'll go into charity work, you know, Wheels on Meals. They'll do something to
Positive.
Positive, yeah. It has to be positive. Don't forget about the negativity,
Right.
you know. But yeah, but that still rings in my brain, you know. Okay, he didn't come with a lesson plan, but he spoke true words, you know. It was like from the heart. And that went a long way.
You heard him.
I heard him.
And
I'm
it
like,
stayed with you. And
well,
maybe tell me about this guy. Something happened to him. Didn't you say he retired? And I'm trying to remember.
well, there was other officers and detectives that, you know, throughout the years that I knew and friends knew, and they had absolutely no hobbies, nothing to do. A lot of them just passed away.
Deteriorate very rapidly, huh?
Yes, I mean.
Yeah, that's the truth. You know, I sometimes people come to my shop or I meet people and they tell me they're about to retire, and that's great, you know. And I do ask them. I say, "Do you have a plan? Like, what are you gonna do with their time?" And some people say nothing, and that's alarming because I know people like that, and I've seen them deteriorate. You know, and I know people personally. But those who now the guy I studied violin making with is definitely worth mentioning, Joe Raig. He retired from IBM in 1988, which he jokingly says, and after he retired, and it's fact that IBM went down in 1988. That was like they were the greatest Fortune 500 company. They, they invented the computer and the microchip, and then in 1988 they tanked. And he jokingly says it has to do with me leaving. But Joe already had a pre-retirement plan. He was already making violins, violin bows, and to this day, since 1988, he's still active and very sharp. No luthier wants to stop working. I always tell people, I'm only 42 years old now, but and I just had my first child recently, but I say I want to work as long as my hands and my eyes allow me to, because I love this work.
Absolutely.
I'm lucky I have it. It's incredible.
Yes.
It's, would you say luthiery, the art of instrument making, would you say it's a very high art?
Yes. Yes.
That's what I believe.
Absolutely, and it's just as rewarding as actually playing an instrument. So. And
it takes just as much time to master making. Like when you look at this tres here, is this in the frame? Yes. That's not the first one you made. That's a product of many years of trial and error. I would say, I don't like the word mistakes. But we make mistakes. No one's perfect. And many years of blood, sweat, and tears go into what you see in the end, like something like that. It doesn't come out in your first try. It takes many years to get there. Just like playing an instrument, you're not going to just start right away and become a great master overnight. You need the musical vocabulary, and with this, you need the practice. And also doing repairs helps. And it doesn't come easy. I mean, it comes at a sacrifice. I mean, you have to buy all these tools. You have to put in the time. But a lot of times, if you're enjoying it, you don't feel it. Like sometimes I do work and the hours go like that.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, whoa. Because I actually used to work for IBM, just like my old master. Mm-hmm. And, when I work for someone else, I'm looking at the clock. Oh my God, is it 6 o'clock? Is it time to leave? And you look, and it's like the time is going backwards.
Right. And
you're like, oh my God.
And there's a term for that, which is you're wishing your life away. You're wishing that it was 8 o'clock and it's only 12 o'clock.
Right.
You're wishing, let's get rid of these 8 hours I gotta be here so that I can go do what I like to do.
Right.
And that's not healthy either, to wish your life away.
Well, now I look at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, it's 7. I was supposed to leave at 6. I forgot. I have to do this and that. Oh, the time goes too fast. There's not enough time.
Yes.
I understand that, but there was times when you're in the police car and you're maybe disgruntled. You don't want to. People are speeding. You don't even pull them over. You're sanding a bridge or something. That's what he told me.
I can say those things now because I'm retired.
Yeah.
If I wasn't retired in my job, we got a hold of some of this stuff now. They'd be like, "Yeah, suspend it," or we're gonna write you up. Well, I'm retired. I don't care. Yeah, I used to take bridges to work and sand them.
Guilty as charged.
And the boss would drive up. What are you doing, Velez? I says, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm here.
Yeah.
If you need me, you call me on the radio, and I'll go do the job, right? But if you have all this idle time too.
Yeah.
So, but he says, what's all that dust on your uniform? Like, don't you worry about that.
Were you wrestling someone in the woods? No, I'm sanding this bridge. So, I remember years ago I asked you, I said, if you pulled me over, because I actually used to frequently drive up the Taconic, it's where you're patrolled. And those days when you were an officer, you could have pulled me over. And I said to you one day, knowing you recently, I said, Tony, what if you pulled me over and I had a tres in the back seat and you saw tres? And you said to me, I'll let you go.
I'll make you get out of the car and play it.
I remember a jam session right there on the Taconic. Taconic is like one of the most dangerous highways too. It's like, especially where you patrolled, it gets really twisty and windy, and I've seen plenty of accidents off of the side of the road, and sometimes there's not even room for an accident to occur. It's a scary highway.
Oh yeah.
I think it's an old highway, right? Original?
Yes, it used to be
horse and carriage.
Yeah.
Right.
So this goes way back, and once in a while, if they could put a little shoulder on part of it, they'll do that, invest all this kind of money, but the shoulder It's not like a real shoulder. It's like half a shoulder. So you're still sticking out into the roadway.
Anyone who's driven the Taconic,
Yeah.
they know exactly what we're talking about.
I've handled tons of accidents, unfortunately, and some sad situations,
That comes with the territory.
That comes with the, it comes with
People,
the job.
some people think that, I'm not pro-police or anti-police, but some people think that just every cop is just shooting people out there. Like, you save lives, and you told me a story the other day, almost made me cry. I don't know if we should get into it now, but that's tough, that's tough work. I mean, but what is life like for you now? You're retired, you have the man cave of all man caves. Like, when I retire, this is the man cave I want. I don't want to drive to a shop. You have your Luthier shop, all the tools and machines you need. You have your full recording studio, instruments. What is life like for you now? You have the family.
Right. I have grandchildren. I'm enjoying every second.
You're even teaching one of your grandsons to play guitar.
Oh, yes. And how I feel now at my age, it's like, okay, I've done this, I've done that. But now I have this yearning to nurture other people who are interested in learning luthiery or learning the guitar. That's surfacing
It's a
for
gift.
me. It's a gift, and I want to share that. And through the Heritage Soundcraft Institute, it's a wonderful, wonderful way to do that. So I totally encourage it. Reach out, and we will be there for you. So
yeah, we've done demos. I've done Luthier demos in the school where I allow the children to bend the sides of a violin and show them some of the tools. I know Tony has done plenty of demos in schools showing them the tres and playing Latin music for them. So there will be more things like that in workshops and concerts even. So we're looking forward to doing those things with this organization.
Oh, absolutely. It was a wonderful, wonderful idea that John thought of. And he says, Tony, you want to be part of it? So, of course I want to be part of it. I want to share. I want to,
Actually, you doing this without the organization. I mean, you come to my shop, and Tony's always generous enough to share the way he builds instruments. And the good thing about having a friend that does this work, I call him up. I say, Tony, I'm tired of doing Spanish here. What's the best way to do a neck? What do you like to do? And he tells me, and then I go, I'm about to do it. I'm just going to stick to what I know. I don't venture out, but maybe I should. But yeah, I pick Tony's brain, and he generously gives me his wisdom and all the years that he's put in, what he has learned. And sometimes he comes and asks me, I share my method, and he adopts it. And
Absolutely.
that's a praxeology where two active practitioners share knowledge with each other, which will actually only elevate the art.
Totally.
One thing I like to talk about briefly is how, particularly in America actually, more than the old world, Europe, where luthiers began sharing knowledge through various ways. It started in the early 80s with the American Luthiers Guild. And they just, for the first time, you had luthiers opening their notebook and saying, this is how I do it. And they just, with a quarterly publication, just showing their method, and then the other guy says, oh, that's nice, but I do it like this. But it's even better if we do it this way. And so inadvertently, and then with the internet, because there's online forums, people sharing knowledge, and now there's university YouTube. I have 10 PhDs, from university YouTube myself. There's some bad knowledge out there, folks. You be careful with that. But so we give each other knowledge, we share knowledge, and that's a good thing about having a friend that's a luthier, Sometimes I get into a snag. I say, can you come over to the shop, please? I say, I'll buy you lunch and a coffee, and he comes over and he helps me get out of the jam. That's the beauty of having a friend that's a luthier, and you're very generous with your time and your knowledge. So that's why I thought of you for the project. So, well, he's already doing this, and he's already preserving tres, Puerto Rican tres, guitars. But we're actually going to have two other video, folks. Two videos. One, we're going to be going over a questionable 1967 Les Paul electric guitar. Tony also is an expert in guitars, in electric guitars. Pickups, he understands the serial numbers. He looks at a serial number, he'll tell you what year it is. He knows everything about what pickups should be with that year. So we have one 67 Les Paul. We're going to go through it soon. We're going to make a video on that. It's very exciting. And furthermore, we're going to be having a video coming out of this very important Nino Rivera 3 that you just had in your shop, you just restored. You gave it back to Nelson Gonzalez, but we're going to get it back for the video. we got to steal it back, and we're going to be producing that video soon.
Yes.
So with that, anything you would like to add, Tony, to this?
Well, I pretty much said how I feel about the whole project and the Heritage Soundcraft Institute, the importance of it, culture, and learning new things, and exploring your horizons. So I just want to thank John for letting me share this on video, because there are other people like me and John out there who would like to share things about Luthier and music, and it's just beautiful arts, And if you have some of that inside of you, and you want it to flourish, then you want to reach out and stay checking the Heritage Soundcraft Institute website for updates and whatnot, and reach out. So that being said, once again, thank you, John, for having me on, and it won't be the last video we do, because it's just so much information we want to share.
Yeah, and if you guys have questions, please, leave them in the comments field, and we'll answer your questions.
Yes.
But one thing a big inspiration for this project was like the concern over our own culture and the young people not knowing their culture and the culture. So it's like the younger generation, some of them do not, especially living here, for the Puerto Ricans living in diaspora, they may not know the Puerto Rican cuatro. They know maybe Daddy Yankee, and that's great. He's a part of the island and the culture, but the real culture is from the Jibaro culture. And it's funny, over the years we spoke about this, about how we should be out there and educating the youth about this. And we do have a band where we play occasionally some traditional Puerto Rican music. I have Tony on the guitar, and I play the cuatro on that project. It's called Last of the Mohicans, and we did a few gigs. We had some outreach. So this organization is more about getting all that out there more. And we also offer workshops on instrument making. I wish I had that opportunity. When I tried to learn how to make instruments, I approached a couple Luthiers, and they flat out said no. And I understand, because Luthier is, quite frankly, a professional luthier is someone who works against the clock. And we always get emails every day. Someone wants to learn how to make an instrument, and I wish I can help everyone, but I only have a certain amount of time in the day.
Right.
But this organization, we offer workshops, so you can look into that. You can make guitar, you can make cuatro, you can make an oud, you can make a tres, and we're offering electric guitar. So please check the website for that, and feel free to contact us with any questions you may have. Thank you very much, Tony. This was a pleasure. I've been looking to do this for a long time.
It was my pleasure, and like I said again, thank you, guys, and we look forward to hearing from you.